This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Jason Hall, CEO of Greater St. Louis, Inc., will be leaving his role and the city at the beginning of this new year. STLPR economic development reporter Eric Schmid caught up with Jason before the holidays. In addition to discussing his time at the helm of Greater St. Louis, Inc., Hall talked about what's ahead for him and what he's looking forward to. Here's Eric.
A little more than 4 years ago, there was a seismic shift in the economic development world in the St. Louis region. 5 separate organizations working in their own ways to promote the region's global profile and attract local jobs merged into a single entity, Greater St. Louis, Inc. One of the key architects of this mega merger, as it was called at the time, was Jason Hall. The native of Granite City had spent more than a decade promoting business development and attraction, first in Jefferson City, then in the St. Louis region. As the CEO of Greater St. Louis, Inc., Hall charted a new path and vision for the region that emphasized commitments to emerging high-tech industries that already had some roots or history here. The STL 2030 Jobs Plan promotes sustained investment in industries around geospatial, advanced manufacturing, biosciences, and agriculture, among others. But Hall won't be around to directly see that vision through. A month ago, Greater St. Louis, Inc. announced he would be resigning from his role as CEO, with his last day January 10th. Hall is moving east with his husband Justin Kern to Ohio, where Hall officially starts as the new CEO of the Columbus Partnership on January 13th. Joining me now is Jason Hall. Welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Great to be with you.
I want to start off with one question that's probably been on a lot of people's minds since the news about your move came out, and it's probably one you've had to answer a lot of. Why Columbus?
Well, it's interesting. Columbus is one of the markets that I studied most intensively as a model of regional collaboration and regional economic development, as a model for what we could do here in St. Louis. And so it's always been a city and a region that I put up on a pedestal that's had their civic act together for a long time, a very fast-growing market, great assets. So, I hadn't returned a call like that in almost 10 years. And when they called early in the fall and asked if I would have that conversation, I sort of had this moment that I need to engage in this dialogue and hear more, because I had looked at it so closely, and a very generous market for sharing best practices that we were able to adopt here. So it was always special in that regard.
Yeah, so they had reached out to you and said, hey, we have this opening. Would you consider applying? Is that kind of how it happened?
Yeah, they did. They reached out in the fall. It was a Sunday. I'm trying to remember what day it even was now, but months ago, obviously, and said, we've talked to people around the country and your name keeps coming up. And would you be willing to have this conversation? And I thought about it for a minute, and this is Columbus. I'm going to have this conversation. And then one thing led to another.
Yeah,
as those things go.
And now we're here. Are you at all nervous about transitioning to both a new city and a new state?
It is. To be human, right? You're stepping into new relationships, new systems, different kinds of challenges. Columbus is one of the fastest growing cities in the Midwest, and they're solving now for the consequences that come with so much growth. But if you look back on my life, I've had to take risks and challenges, and whether it was going off to as a first-generation college kid to a college campus I'd never seen. As I've told people, I'd never even been on an airplane. But it turned out to be one of the greatest decisions of my life. And let me tell you, nothing was scarier than that. I think back when, I took that leap of faith from the Bryan Cave Law Firm, a place I loved dearly, and I loved the work that I did and my colleagues there. It was such an amazing place, still is, to go serve Governor Nixon in his administration and go do state government. That was very scary. In the middle of the recession, I had never done anything like that. And I'll tell you, starting Arch to Park, quitting a job. Justin and I sold our house because we had to financially de-lever. I only had about 24 months of runway. Andy Taylor was supportive of that effort. Andy Taylor wasn't leading it in quite the way that he is now. That was a relationship that developed over time. So I've thought about it and just, it's maybe why I got started in the startup and entrepreneurial space. You take risks, and change is a risk, but it's invigorating, it's challenging, it brings new opportunities. And I'll tell you, already talking to just the class acts that are here in St. Louis and in Columbus, people that work in this market that have friends in that market have already started reaching out, making those introductions. We have many businesses that are headquartered here in St. Louis that have material operations there and vice versa. And socially, people are reaching out. Justin and I have been very, very welcomed in that market. And that only makes us feel better that it was a great decision for us at this particular moment in time. It doesn't change anything about our love for St. Louis. I put 12 years personally into this. I am thrilled with where it's at, and we can obviously talk more about that.
Yeah, well, the thing that it sounds like to me is that this isn't so much of a goodbye, but, well, I'll be back here and there, and it doesn't sound like it's a clean break. Like there's still a lot of connection based off of what you said. Is that what you foresee?
Yeah, I think in the Midwest, it's become very collaborative. A lot of us in the Midwest have faced very similar challenges. And I think there would have been an era where organizations like ours in these different cities were afraid to talk because we were going to compete one day. Greater St. Louis Inc. wouldn't exist, but for the generosity of markets like Columbus, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati. They gave us internal documents, know-how to stand this organization up faster. And I think it's just we got to the reality. We face much bigger issues that we need to work on collectively as a Midwest, and a good, strong Midwest is good for everybody. And I just appreciate that. And so I'm going to continue to be pulling for St. Louis's success. You don't give 12 years of your life to something and take those kinds of risks because you want to see it get worse. I mean, that makes no sense at all. So yeah, we'll continue to have collaborative relationships, but so excited, obviously, to step into a new set of opportunities and challenges and do the very best that I can, with this exciting new opportunity to steward the Columbus Partnership and its CEO community into its next generation.
Mm-hmm. I think about how you've spent, most of your career in St. Louis or Missouri, and how it might be a little bit bittersweet to leave that behind. I mean, you've referenced the 12 years of effort put in here. What are you thinking or feeling about actually leaving?
It is hard. I mean, when you have so many memories of a place and friendships and mentors and all of that, that's real. That's human. And life is a lot of relationships at the end of the day and memories. So, yeah, that is definitely a challenge. But on the flip side, when you start meeting new people, I love people, and I love bringing interesting networks together. And I'm already starting to get that energy in Columbus. One of the Congress people there was texting me already. We have a mutual friend in common, and we were already starting to draw those connections. And, you start realizing, these are great people, and it's going to be fun to breathe life into those new relationships as well and do amazing things. Because I have always said the work we do, and I tell our team this every day at Greater St. Louis Inc., this work is important to this country right now as we face very challenging politics and polarization. At a regional level, that's where the rubber hits the road. You have to work with your neighbors, even when you disagree. I think you got to have give and take. You've seen that. You've covered a lot of that in the work that we do. That's good for this country. And I think those values in that way of working are important, just national values that make us stronger as a country. Yeah. And I deeply believe that. I'm deeply patriotic.
Yeah. Thinking more about your time at Greater St. Louis Inc., what are you most proud of accomplishing there?
Well, there are so many things, but I think maybe bigger arc, I'd have to say the fact that we unified these groups in a real way. At the time, people said that can't happen, or we had one sort of prominent individual that said you'll never get that deal closed in 6 months. And sure, we worked 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, and didn't take a day off, but we did get it done. And The pride I have taken that in that period of time, say that has been almost 5 years, if you think of the work, a year of pre-merger work, we've built something people are proud of and that they feel. And I'll tell you, that has hit me hard. When this announcement came out, the messages that have come in from community stakeholders, investors, and partners, you realize people truly appreciate the leadership and they appreciate the work to make St. Louis stronger. So I'm really, really proud of that, of building something of value that people care about in defragmenting anything in St. Louis and showing it can actually get better. And I think there's lessons in there for city, county integration and other things we're going to need to tackle as a region longer term. I'm really proud of the jobs plan, the STL 2030 jobs plan. I think taking on those issues, those fracture lines in this region around race and inclusion and geography that we have tripped over so many times, and to make that actually work and mean something to real people's lives. And that's been another strong message that's come into me from people, particularly those from underrepresented communities. Those messages have pulled at my heart more than anything, to be honest with you. And I think that's something I'm really proud of, to show that these two forces are not opposing. They actually are more powerful when braided together. And then, of course, the stuff that probably a lot of people focus on that we're excited about, the memories of restoring nonstop air service to continental Europe for the first time in 20 years and in year one, winning Build Back Better and bringing this amazing catalytic opportunity to North City, St. Louis, really complementing the work we've been doing around GeoFutures. And I think that is special. I still say there's nowhere else in this country where you have that $2 billion catalytic federal investment going into an area of severe underinvestment and starting to chart a course that looks very different with very different people benefiting from it and a very different kind of table. Incredibly proud of that work.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot downtown, getting the airport back on two legs in a civically healthy way in partnership with Mayor Jones and County Executive Page and others. That's been fun. Winning is fun. And I think we've done a lot of that over the last 4 years.
Yeah,
together.
no, there are so many different threads and stories to pull on there. What's something that no one knows about you or the work that you've done here, or very little people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think sometimes as my job has evolved and changed, we started with, 20 people. We're at 40 people. The budget has expanded. The number of investors has expanded. The number of initiatives has expanded. So what a lot of people see is only this very public-facing side of me. There's a lot of work that goes into this that the public doesn't see. And I've often said the most important things that our team does and does well, no one ever really gets judged on. It's the way you treat people. It's the relationships. It's the passion. It's the customer service. It's trying to always be better and building that, that work ethic, I think, that goes with it. I'm so proud of this. We have an amazing team today. So people don't always see that part of the job and the hours in the weekends and the evenings that you put in. There's a lot of days you're in that office by 6 a.m. You may be going through a dinner that night. These are long days. It's hard work. So you got to have a lot of passion and that's what our team is filled with.
That's Jason Hall, CEO of Greater St. Louis, Inc. He's leaving that role later this month and heading to Columbus, Ohio, to lead a similar organization there. Let's get back to his conversation with STLPR economic development reporter Eric Schmid.
Is there anything you wish you would have known before pushing to form Greater St. Louis, Inc.?
That's a great question. One of our very generous investors and CEOs said to me, the only question I have is, why didn't we do this 20 years ago? And I sort of had this retort, and I said, I don't know the answer to that, but at least we did it now. And the only thing we can ask ourselves today is, what do we need to restructure, reorganize for more impact today that we don't want to wait 20 more years to do? Because those are the only relevant questions at this point. But no, it's been a wild ride. It's been fun. It is. There was no playbook for this, and the team knew that. And I feel like we've stopped to enjoy the ride. We've savored in the moments. We feel that energy as a team from the community as things got further and further along. I always said if I ever got this shot, because my start in this was at the state under Governor Nixon, working with St. Louis from the outside in. And I was like, oh my gosh, compared to Kansas City and Springfield, there has got to be a better way. And I always said if I ever got the shot to do something like this, I would leave nothing on the table. And it's been intense, but I feel good about that. But I feel even better about the impact that the team has had.
Yeah. Okay. So given that, is there anything you would have changed or done differently?
Wow. I don't think so. I really have, there were a lot of lessons, that you learn along the way. I mean, that life is full of those, but I think that's a normal part of the process. But I'm not sure there's anything wholesale cloth I would change. I love the lessons. This was an accelerated course and lots of things coming out of a pandemic and, tackling these big arcs in St. Louis. But I really don't know that there's anything major that I would say I'd have really done it differently. I just take the lessons and get better tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's something that you wish you could have done or had the time to see through here now that you're going to be going to Columbus?
Yeah, I think I'm really bullish on the way this region has changed on downtown. I think if you look now at, we've won some of the biggest deals in some of the counties in which we've cited these competitive projects. They're the largest deal in the history of the county. So the economic development piece is good. Some great policy work that's happening. I think getting the airport in partnership, it's not fully completed, but well on its pathway for a long overdue revitalization under Rhonda's leadership there. Downtown becomes the big issue. It's really thorny. It's capital intensive and requires a lot of behavioral change in St. Louis. And I have seen, particularly over this past year, a mind shift change. Maybe some of that happened when the Wall Street Journal article gave us a wake-up call as a region. That's okay. Let's acknowledge that. That sometimes you need to look in the mirror in a unique way to realize how serious it is. It's always been a priority in the jobs plan from day one, but we knew that was going to be a process. So I think that's a big one. And then the second one is, I think as we get more confidence and we get more proof points that it's scary to change at times, but that it can actually get better, would be to see where we can go from a city-county integration, whatever that might look like. I think it's a serious conversation we're going to need to have as a region here going into the end of this decade.
Yeah. Do you feel like St. Louis has that right balance of patience but also aggressiveness to achieve this vision? Because that's what it seems like it needs.
It does. You need urgency. I mean, this is, maybe I've been accused of being too intensive at times. And it's when it's home, it's deeply personal. But I kept staring down those numbers every day that I got up and said, by 2030, we may be falling from the 21st largest metro to closer to the 30th in one decade. And we'd give up as much ground in this decade as we basically gave up post-World War II from a ranking standpoint. That was a sense of urgency that drove me, that drove the team. Andy Taylor's always said, we got to act with urgency every day, but you never take shortcuts. That was one of the lessons, that Andy always instilled in me under his stewardship. And I think we need to keep that in mind, that you can't take shortcuts, but we do need urgency. And I feel that on the ground now in ways that I would not in parts of the last decade when I was first getting started in this work.
What might be holding us back from being able to achieve that vision fully? It's like what needs to still happen in the next 5 years to really get to 2030 and know that the goal was achieved or close to achieved? Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I've spoken about this many times and very openly. If you look at the arc of St. Louis compared to fast-growing peers in the Midwest, like a Nashville or an Indy or a Columbus, the difference has been they've had decades of continuous civic leadership without
major distortions or major disruptions. And if you look at the civic history here in St. Louis, we've had higher peaks and valleys, periods of intensive engagement, and then periods of disengagement. And I've spoken openly about the challenges I saw firsthand as a young staffer in this work last decade. It was unacceptable, and St. Louis deserved better. So I think that the key is going to be keeping the resolve that you've got to stay the course. This is a long-term game. Long-term cannot be an excuse for not taking immediate action today, but you still got to stay the course. And so that's going to be, I think, if St. Louis can get that right, no question that it wins the decade. But it's going to that's what it's going to require, and you can't go backwards.
You're going to keep tabs on St. Louis while in Columbus, and we'll probably visit because that's home is here, right?
We have family here, so we're going to be visiting St. Louis.
So what are you most excited to follow? Keep your eyes on.
Well, downtown. I mean, I'm really excited to see where that can go. It's just been such a deep challenge that's felt intractable to so many people for so long. And you see that attitude shift, both in people on the streets, the investment that's going on right now, the civic leadership, the political leadership. I mean, we're having a conversation politically now about downtown that would have been unimaginable several years ago. And that's important. And that's why an organization like this exists, not because that was a pet project. It was that the data and best practice for long-term regional growth coming out of the 2030 jobs plan says, if you don't get that piece right, it's a brake tap on everything else you're going to do. So I'm going to be really, really excited to see that. I'm going to be excited to see the NGA break ground in 25. I was just talking to the
NGA, have people move in 25.
Yeah, have people actually, not break ground, but actually the ribbon cutting, the formal opening, because when we started that, I can still remember, Andy Taylor, David Kemper, and I flying out to the NGA to meet the director, and in this kind of thought process that we put before people was, what do we want to say is true now? And what do we want to make true when we cut that ribbon on the NGA? And so we had like 5-6 years, to figure that out, and to see what that has become. In some of those early leaders, what Zakita has done with Gateway Global up in North City, St. Louis now, and I'm so proud of Harris Stowe, the way they have stepped in to national leadership, not only among the HBCU community, but just among the university community in this industry, would have been unimaginable. And I think when they open that today to say this was inclusive from day one, partners that are often left off the table on day one were there, and the region and those partners are stronger because of that. I can't wait to see that come to life and cheer on the success of those leaders that are going to continue that drive.
Yeah. So I know at least some people are probably thinking this, but is Greater St. Louis Inc. going to be okay without you there?
Yes. It is a great team of people. And when we set this out, I always said, and I've spoken openly, I did not want to be the kind of leader that, you want the role, and long as you're presiding over an ash pile, you're happy regardless of whether we get to success. The whole point of this was to build a best-in-class institution with a professional staff and a professional bench of people and a broadly engaged stakeholder community and CEO community that has exceeded my wildest expectations in terms of the quality, the commitment, the time, the civic fervor. It will go on. I'm proud to have been a part of this journey over the last 12 years, the last 5 particularly unique. I feel so good, truly so good about the condition that it's left in and the opportunity. I think it's always good to have fresh ideas coming to the table, new ideas. There's no monopoly on that. Almost half of my senior leadership team have been the CEO of an organization before I recruited them in. There's many people that can step into that leadership, and this organization will be strong. And as Andy Taylor said, it will not miss a beat in this transition. And I fully believe that to be true, or I would not have been in a position to be able to look at an exciting new opportunity for Justin and I.
That was Jason Hall, soon to be former CEO of Greater St. Louis Inc., in conversation with STLPR economic development reporter Eric Schmid. Hall's last day at Greater St. Louis Inc. is January 10th. He'll leave the city soon for Ohio, where he'll lead the nonprofit Columbus Partnership.
This episode was produced by Maya Norfleet.
This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron Dorr.
Recording by Eric Schmid. Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.